So today I'm going to be following a tutorial from celebrity makeup artist Hung Van Gogh. I love his looks so much, and this is the Warm Toned Effortless Fall Ready Makeup Tutorial. This look is absolutely stunning. It looks like a really beautiful, just soft, glam look, great for this kind of summer to fall transition time that we're in right now. Of course, in true Sarah fashion, I didn't go out and buy all the same exact products he used. Instead, I'm going to be searching through my collection to find what I think looks similar to the products he used. I only bought one new thing for this video, and that is a brown mascara. He uses a brown mascara in this video, but I also have not been happy with the mascaras that I have open right now, and I really miss having a brown mascara, so I did purchase the e.l.f. Lash Extendr that we're going to try later on in this video. But let's get started. So I really like that he focuses a lot on skin prep in this video. Now, I am filming this a little bit later in the day, so I've already done my AM skincare routine, but actually the first product he starts with is a lip balm, and I love that because it's going to just keep the lips hydrated while we do the rest of our makeup. So I'm going to be using, this is the Glow Recipe Plum Plump Hyaluronic Gloss Balm. I'm just going to put a little bit of that on. Then he goes on with the rest of her skin prep. He uses an eye serum, face serum, a moisturizer, and a sunscreen. I have been having drier skin recently, so today I actually did apply a moisturizer before sunscreen. So the moisturizer I'm wearing is the Axis Y Panthenol 10 Skin Smoothing Shield Cream. I actually used it for the last time today, so that is why it's cut in half. And then my sunscreen that I have on today over that is the Purito Daily Soft Touch Sunscreen SPF 50. So with that, let's go ahead and hop into the makeup tutorial.
For the foundation, I'm going to use very little bit. It's a liquid foundation. It's very hydrating formula, and it's radiant finish. It's medium to buildable full coverage foundation. It's really beautiful.
Okay, this foundation he's using looks beautiful. This is the Clé de Peau Radiant Cream Foundation. He was saying this foundation has medium buildable coverage and is hydrating. So I'm gonna go with something that I have that I think might be similar. This is one of my favorite foundations, the ColourPop Pretty Fresh Hydrating Foundation. And he is using a brush for this. So I'll use a brush today. I might tap over it with a sponge.
You see that I just put a little bit, maybe a little more here. Because the neck a little bit different color, so I'm just using a little bit just to blend it out. This foundation is really beautiful. You know, sometimes you have so many new launch, you keep using new launch and you forget how gorgeous some foundation is. Sometimes you come back and I look at the finish and say, this is really gorgeous foundation. I should use more often than this. And you can get really good coverage, but I didn't wanna, she have just beautiful skin. I don't want to overly cover her face with foundation.
She does have beautiful skin, and this is really making me want this foundation, but I really like what he said about coming back to those old favorites. That's exactly how I feel about the ColourPop Pretty Fresh foundation. I am going to just tap over this with my damp sponge, just because I love the finish a sponge gives.
For concealer, I'm going to use two shades. The first one is Almond. It's a little lighter shade. I look mainly on the T-zone area here and the under eye, because I just like that dimension on the face, so I want a little more brightness.
What I'm going to do is for those areas that he brightened, I'm going to add in my Milani Under Eye Brightener in Rose. And he said this is a light coverage concealer he's using, so my lightest coverage concealer is the NYX Bear With Me concealer, which really is kind of a medium coverage. So I'm going to actually take this under eye brightener, mix it with the NYX concealer where I do want to brighten a little bit. And you know what, I'll even try this here kind of in the center of the forehead and down the nose as kind of a brightener. And then I'll take just a little dab of the NYX concealer with that for some coverage. He's using like one of those metal palettes, but I'm going to just use the back of my hand to kind of mix that brightening shade with the concealer, because it looks like he's taking this onto the chin and a little bit even on the upper lip. Yeah, so that's those two products mixed together. That's a pretty shade. Yeah, I'm gonna take a little bit of this on my chin. It's got some like next to the nose here.
And what you can do is you can use your foundation brush and just blend out all the edges. The next shade I'm using is Ochre. So I use, the shade is look pretty close to the foundation shade, so I just use to cover the redness around the nose, or anywhere that I want to cover a little more, I use that shade.
He did the sides of the nose. Honestly, I don't really feel like I have any extra redness there that I need to cover. I do have like a tiny little pimple right here. So I'm just going to take a little bit right there. Looks like he's using a really tiny brush for this spot concealing. So I just grabbed my e.l.f. eyeliner brush, which is like a really small pointed brush. I'm going to try that on this pimple. So I just took a tiny bit on my hand, and let's see how this works. Nice targeted application. Kind of tapping out the edges with my finger.
For powder, I'm going to use from Polite Society More Than a Pretty Powder Pore Minimizing Talc Free Microfried Loose Setting Powder. Hold on, that's the long name. The shade I'm using is Brightening Peach. Look up for me.
I am going to substitute that for my e.l.f. Halo Glow Loose Setting Powder. This is in the shade Light Pink, which you could also describe this shade as a really light peach color. It's really not nearly as pink as some other pink powders. Looking at you, one size ultra pink powder. This one's like really, really pink. But he uses this powder not only on the under eyes, but also all over the face. And normally I only use this e.l.f. light pink powder on my under eyes, so I'm going to try it all over my face today and see how that looks. So it looks like he's applying the powder with a small tapered brush on the under eyes, so I just grabbed my Sigma E35 tapered highlighter brush. Looks like a similar shape to what he's using. So as he's applying this, he asks her to look up, so that's what I'm going to do. I also noticed that he took some, actually with that smaller brush, on the eyelids. So I'm going to do that as well. I'm sure my eyelids could use some oil absorbing. And then he switches over to a larger powder brush for the whole face. So I'm going to switch over to my Ecotools full powder brush. Looks like kind of a similar shape to what he's using, maybe a little bit more dense. Okay, so far I really like how everything is looking. I would say this looks pretty similar to how I normally do my base, except for the brightening concealer on the T-zone. That was a little bit different for me. I think it looks nice. All right, let's continue. So now we're getting into powder bronzer.
For bronzer, I'm going to use Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Bronzer. The shade I'm using medium. This is a matte powder bronzer. You can see that just used a little bit only. It is very fine meal powder and it's helped to create a blurred effect, which is really great if you're not good at blending.
Okay, I was really excited to see that for the bronzer step, I actually have the same bronzer and brush that he used. So he used the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Bronzer in medium on her. I have the shade Fair. And he also used the BK Beauty 104 brush, which I actually really love this brush. Normally I use it for blush, but I'm going to try it for bronzer today. So he's starting by sweeping this across her forehead and just kind of, he's like really just tapping the brush on there. Fair, I will say, is a really light shade, so I am probably not going to be as light-handed with it as he was.
I use just the shade is not too dark. I think this is a great shade on her.
So he's also taking some of this down here on the jawline, and also looks like just above the hollows of her cheeks. Alright, so it looks like the next step he's doing is brows.
I'm going to do my usual drawing backward. See, I just do a little bit like this to get depth in there. And then I draw the backward here. So what I'm gonna do next is I use the brow marker. And this part, I'm just gonna finesse the eyebrow. And the micro pen like this is great for you to detailing all the little gap that you didn't want to fill in with the pencil because they're gonna look too dense. So I just go basically I detail in the eyebrow a little bit more.
So the brow step I am going to have to modify because I don't own any brow pencils. I really just don't use brow pencils. What I'm going to do is just skip the brow pencil step and go straight in with my NYX Lift and Snatch brow pen. And this will be what I use to just lightly fill in my brows.
You're going to set the eyebrow with the brow gel. This is a lightweight water-based clear gel. And it's lift and hold the brow in place. I
have to say I'm really curious actually about this Rare Beauty brow gel because he says really good things about it here. So I might have to add that to my wish list. But For this look today, I'm going to use my NYX brow glue, and I'm just going to use this to lift my brow hairs a little bit. Looks like he's kind of going for just a fluffed up but still nicely structured brow. So next we're getting into the eye makeup.
For eyes, I'm going to use these 3 products. The first one is Victoria Beckham Beauty Satin Kajal Liner. The shades I'm using is brown. For mascara, I'm going to use from Iconic London Triple Thread Mascara. Shade is brown. For eyeshadow, I'm going to use from Natasha Denona Golden Eyeshadow Palette. And the shades I'm using, just all these like warm shades here. I didn't know exactly yet, but I'm just gonna play with them.
Okay, I guess he doesn't use eyeshadow primer. I'm gonna have to stray from his instructions here for a moment and go in with some eyeshadow primer. I'm using the Urban Decay Primer Potion today. And for the eyeshadow, I don't have the golden palette, but I did pull out my I Need a Nude palette from Natasha Denona because I think this might have some kind of similar shades to what he used, at least for the shimmer later on. And then I also pulled my Urban Decay Naked palette because I think this has some similar nude matte shades. So hopefully between those 2 palettes, I should be able to create a similar look.
To start, I'm going to use this shade right here.
So I'm going to substitute that for the shade Fair here in I Need a Nude. He's actually applying this with a fluffy brush. I'm going to use the BK Beauty 206, which is a fluffy but also pinched in brush.
I'm doing this all over the eyelid here, and this could be a great way to do as a prime to the eyelid as well.
This shade is actually looking really peachy on me by itself, so I'm actually going to dip into Virgin from the Urban Decay Naked palette and just add some of that on top to kind of lighten it, because on her it really looks like a very light cream color all over her lid. Yeah, that's better. That's better. I should have just done this shade from the beginning.
What I'm going to do as well is I'm going to take a smaller brush. I'm going to do it pretty close to the brow bone area, I mean. So just define the eyebrow and the brow bone a little more. I'm going to use this shade right here. Do this on this part of the eye.
So next he's taking a mid-toned brown shade on what looks like a kind of dense, pointed, small crease brush. So I pulled out my Sigma E45. I'm going to dip into the shade Buck from the Naked palette. And he's starting out by just really directing this straight through the crease, doing the shape first, and then the blending will come later. So he's taking that through the crease, and then he's also taking some here in the outer corner, like the outer V. Alright, I'm actually going to mix in some of the shade Naked here, just to warm it up a little bit, because that's actually looking kind of taupe.
You see I do the shape first, and then you get the brush that you used earlier, and you just blend it out a little bit.
And I'm actually seeing now how the matte cream shade that we put down earlier is helping with the blend.
Next, using this shade for the under lash line. It's very subtle color. That's what I like. Just soft smoke out. Same shade I just used. I do a little bit on the lash line here.
Okay, so then he's taking a really light tan shade and smoking that out on the lower lash line and the upper lash line. So I'm going to use Naked by itself for this. I think this should be pretty similar. It looks like he's using that same more pointed, targeted crease brush for this. So yeah, I like that shade on the lower lash line. And then he's also taking that up here on the upper lash line.
Go back to the deeper shade I used earlier. I'm just going to define this a little more. And again, use that brush. And this time, I just really brush it, blend it outward and upward like this. So it's really lifted.
Okay, I like where this is headed.
Next, I'm using the brown liner to define the lash line a little more. And I do mainly from the outer part.
So working with what I have, I actually don't have a brown pencil liner like he's using, but I do have a brown liquid liner. This is the Annabelle Eye Ink. And then I'll go over this with some brown eyeshadow to smudge it out a little bit. I'm just going to do a really small wing. Oh, kind of out of practice with liquid liner. But that's okay because we're going to smudge over it with some brown shadow. He's using what looks like a really small pencil brush to smudge this out, so I'm using my Ecotools liner smudge brush. I'm going to pick up some of this dark brown shade in I Need a Nude called Silhouette. Just picking up a tiny dab of that. And making this look nice and smoky. Guys, I have to say, looking up closer at my skin has just not been in a good place. I think my skin barrier got messed up by a moisturizer that I used recently. I'll put it on the screen here, but my skin has just not been happy. So I really don't think it's any fault of the products or the techniques, but yeah, my skin just looks really dry and peely today, but that's okay.
Next, I'm going to curl the lashes first, and then I put some mascara.
I hardly ever curl my lashes, but I did dust off my e.l.f. lash curler just for this video. So let's give them a quick curl. I do feel like as I've gotten a little bit older, my lashes have gotten more straight. They used to have, and they still do have, a little bit of natural curl to them, which is why I don't usually go in with a lash curler. But as I've gotten older, I have more and more brow hairs that are just stick straight. So that's annoying. So maybe I should start getting in the habit of actually curling my lashes. Yeah, they look very curled right now.
I use the brown mascara instead of black because I want this really soft. I'm going to do 2 coats on the upper lashes and 1 on lower.
So I actually did buy, just for this video, a brown mascara because I've really been missing having a brown mascara in my collection. So this is the e.l.f. Lash Extendr. It's a tubing mascara. I've heard really good things about this. Also, this looks like my kind of brush. I love a plastic bristle brush like this. So he said he goes in with 2 coats on the upper lashes and just 1 coat on the lower lashes.
I mean, you can use black as well, but like I said, I want it more monochrome-ish and it's more softer, smoky that I'm trying to do instead like a heavy lashes. And I think sometimes it's nice to go with brown mascara instead of the black one.
Okay, I do have to say my lashes are looking extra curled and lifted today. Who would have guessed? And I got some on my lower lash line. It's fine. So far, I'm liking this mascara. I always say, like, the first use is really too soon to tell how I feel about a formula. Because it takes some time usually for them to thicken up just a little bit, but so far I do think this is looking nice on my lashes. Definitely not that brown. Like, it doesn't look noticeably brown once it's on my lashes, but I do think, you know, if you were to put this on next to the black version of this, it would definitely look a lot softer.
What I'm going to use is a little bit of this shimmer as well. Do a little bit on the eyeball area.
So then he actually takes a shimmer shadow. It looks like a really light champagne sparkly shade, has a very wet look to it, beautiful. I'm thinking this shade Muse from I Need a Nude is probably similar to that one, so that's the one I'm going to use. So he's sweeping this on with what looks like a flat but also kind of fluffy brush, so I'm going to use this Sigma E27 detail blending brush. I hope I don't get any fallout with this because it's going to land right in that mascara, but he's just kind of sweeping this on the lid, making sure to tap off any excess on my brush before I go in. And I'm really trying not to touch my lashes with this. I'm actually going to grab a smaller shader brush so that I can get this shade right up close to my lash line, because I was kind of struggling with that fluffier brush. I think my lashes are dry now, so this shouldn't stick too much to them. And he's also tapping just a little bit of this in the inner corner. I like that this is more of just like a really glistening sparkle rather than a really foiled shimmer. Okay, so I think that is it for the eyes. Now we're going back to the cheeks for blush and highlighter.
For blush, I'm going to use Hourglass Cosmetic Unreal Liquid Blush. The shade I'm using called Future. So you see it, I just blend a bit in my hand first. before I dab it on the face.
Okay, I have to say I'm a little bit nervous about applying blush on top of powder because this usually doesn't go over well for me. I'm going to use the Rare Beauty liquid blush in the shade Hope. This isn't quite as coral as the shade he used, but it is like a soft pinky nude shade that I think will go nicely with this eye look. And the brush he used actually looks a lot like the BK Beauty 109, which is like a mini version of that foundation brush that I used. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this, really kind of work it in there. And it looks like he's really focusing this on the apple of her cheek and then blending it back and forth from there. So it doesn't look like he's putting any on her nose, but I like how he is sort of doing it sunburnt blush style, like he is taking it all the way in, like pretty close to the nose right here. Okay, I'm happy to say, despite the fact that I am having a bad skin day and I've already powdered, this Rare Beauty blush actually applied really nicely, considering those two things. Yeah, if anything, the blush actually added more moisture to my skin, which I kind of needed, especially right here on my cheeks, so it actually looks good. Okay, yay. So next he's going in with a highlighter.
For highlighter, I'm going to use Rare Beauty Positive Light Silky Touch Highlighter. The shade is called Mesmerize. This is one of my favorite shades. And this is more a shimmery highlighter. It's long wear, vegan and cruelty free as well. You see I use very little bit at a time.
So he is using the Rare Beauty highlighter in Mesmerize, which looks gorgeous. I don't actually have any really pinky toned highlighters like that, but I do have a peachy toned one from Nabla. This is the Skin Glazing highlight in Privilege. This is, I think, probably the closest thing I have to what he's using. And he's actually using a really small highlighter brush. Normally I use a really big fluffy one, but I'm going to try one of my smaller highlight brushes. This is the Sigma F03. And I like how he kind of just tapped it in there. I know those Rare Beauty highlighters are more of an intense highlighter formula. These Nabla ones are pretty subtle, but they can get intense if you layer them on. So I'm just tapping back and forth with my brush. Let's see how does he do it.
You can use this as a eyeshadow if you like to. It's very beautiful formula.
So he's really sweeping it up and out. And then he also took some up here on the brow bone. I definitely think this highlighter formula works well with a smaller targeted brush like this, because this is such a forgiving highlighter formula to begin with. But I think I still prefer my bigger, fluffier highlight brush. And he also did sweep some down the bridge of her nose and also a little tiny bit on the Cupid's bow.
For lips, I'm going to use from Rare Beauty Effortless Lips. This is one of beautiful formula. The shades I'm using is called Poppy, and on the lips color, sheer to bold, depend how much you want in there. But the formula is just really beautiful. If you want more intense, you can, but I want to keep this look somewhat soft.
Okay, so he used one of the Rare Beauty Effortless Lips. This shade looks beautiful. This is the shade Poppy that he's using. I don't have this shade. I do have Lily, which is more of a tan nude. Then I also have a shade of the e.l.f. Hydrating Core Lip Shine that looks kind of similar to what he used, not quite as pink, but this is the shade Cheery here, which is like a coral reddish color. And what I thought was really interesting is he applies it straight from the stick first, but then he blends it out with an eyeshadow brush. Let's try the e.l.f. Hydrating Core Lip Shine. So he's really focusing this, like as he's applying it, on the center of the lips. And then he's blending it out all across the lips with an eyeshadow brush. I do actually really like this color. I would not have thought to use a coral color like this for a fall look, but I actually think it works, especially since we're just kind of transitioning from summer to fall right now. I like that he still used some kind of bright but muted colors. I like that on the cheeks and lips he used some still kind of colorful, like muted colorful shades. And I really like that eyeshadow brush trick on the lips. That I think is going to be a keeper for me. I love that.
To finish the makeup, I'm going to use BioEffect OSA Water Mist. This is a hydrating mist, so it does give that subtle mattifying effect as well. So just to refresh the makeup a little bit.
So then he finishes off the look with a water mist from the brand Bio Effect, and he says that the mist he's using has a little bit of a mattifying effect. So I'm going to use my Makeup Revolution Infinite Mattifying Setting Spray. So there's the completed look. Okay, takeaways, things I want to take from this video and implement them into my regular routine. First up, I loved the use of the eyeshadow brush on the lips. Definitely going to steal that and use it more often because I always love a very like blurred, soft lip look. I also think this could be great to use not only with tinted lip balms like we did today, but even with more opaque lipsticks to sheer them out a little bit, blur them out. Definitely going to be using that trick again. Also, I think I do want to get back into curling my lashes more often because I really do see the difference that it made in my lashes now. It's a step that I have always skipped because I didn't used to need it. But like I said, some of my lashes have really started to get more and more straight. I guess gravity has started to slowly straighten my lashes, which I do not appreciate. But I really do think that the lash curler made a difference, I have to admit. So that, I think, is a technique that I'm going to try to do more regularly. I'll probably still forget a lot, but I'm going to try to make that a habit. I also loved the eyeshadow placement. I love how he really sculpted the crease first and then blended it out. Usually what I do is kind of the opposite. Usually I go in with a really fluffy crease brush and diffuse things right from the get-go. Like I start with a transition shade and then I might go in with a deeper crease shade. But I really like how he really sculpted the eye first and then blended later. I think that gave a really beautiful, sultry, defined look to the eye. So that is a technique I think I do want to do again. I also loved the blush placement, the way he really kind of targeted it on the apples of the cheeks and then went side to side and like up and down to blend it. Let me know, what was your favorite thing that you learned from this tutorial, maybe something you had never thought to try before? I love doing this kind of video because it just gets me out of my usual routine. It gets me trying something new, and I always learn something. So let me know, what makeup artist tutorial would you like for me to follow next? I think I would like to make this into a series if you guys enjoy it, so let me know in the comments below. If you're enjoying my content, I'd love to invite you to check out either my Patreon or my channel membership. I post an extra makeup tutorial and vlog every month over there, so I'd love to see you over there as well. A huge shout out to all of my current patrons and members. You guys are the best. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you had fun. If you did, be sure to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and hopefully I'll talk to you very soon in my next video. Bye!